So, let me to kick this off. As battalion operations officer, Hester pointed to where an enemy machine gun was located and approximately where a 4-gun battery of 105s was situated. That was all he knew. Captain Hester turned to me and said, "There's fire along that hedge road there. Take care of it." That was the sum of my orders. No detailed battle plan, no intelligence summary, nothing but a specific task to be accomplished without delay. Easy Company's mission was to silence the battery. And we talk about the basic principles of combat. One of them is simple, clear, concise. There you go. That's your orders. There's fire along that hedgerow. Take care of it. And this is also obviously an unbelievable example of decentralized command. Mm-hmm. You go solve this problem. And his response is, "I got it." Back to the book. Conducting a mental estimate of the situation, I viewed any infantry assault on the battery as a high-risk opportunity since our air forces had failed to destroy the artillery battery in the preliminary bombardment prior to the seaborne invasion. Our key would be initiative and immediate appraisal of the situation, skillful use of the terrain, and our ability to destroy one gun at a time. So you'll notice as soon as he knows that there's multiple guns, what does he decide to do? One gun at a time, solve one problem at a time. A little something we like to call prioritize and execute. The first thing I did was have everybody drop all equipment except ammunition and grenades, for that was all we would need if things went from good to bad. So get rid of the things you don't need. Focus on this one task that we've got right now. It's another prioritize and execute order right there. While the non-commissioned officers prepared the men for the assault, I conducted a hasty reconnaissance of the enemy position. A leader gains an advantage in combat if he's able to appraise the terrain and the situation quickly and correctly. Crawling along the hedgerow, I moved to a position where I could get a better view of the enemy position. The guns appeared to be set in a trench in the hedgerow, covered by machine gun fire from across an open pasture. The battery was firing directly down Causeway No. 2 in the direction of Utah Beach, where the initial waves of the 4th Infantry Division were already landing. So you've got these German guns in an elevated position hammering Utah Beach, where the 4th Infantry Division is trying to land right now. It's a nightmare. Anticipating that it would be too costly to conduct a frontal attack across an open field, I determined our chances of success would be greatly enhanced if we could hit the enemy on the flank and silence one gun at a time. Hit the enemy on the flank. Again, these are basic principles. And I hate using the word basic because it's fundamentals. There's nothing basic about it. It's basic, but it's beautiful. Beautiful in its simplicity. Returning to the company, I assigned specific missions to each man, so everybody knows what their task is going to be. First, I placed one of Easy Company's 2 machine guns in a position where they could provide covering fire as we moved carefully into position.
Cover and move.
Cover and move. Next, I divided our detachment into 2 units, one led by Lieutenant Buck Compton and the other remaining with me. Compton moved down one hedgerow with Sergeant Garnier and Malarkey to get as close to the first gun in the battery as possible, while I led my unit down a parallel hedgerow. Compton also sent Sergeants Lipton and Rainey to a concealed position to put flanking fire on the enemy, while my detachment crawled across the open field to approach the gun first. So you got multiple cover and move situations going on right now. And again, to the military folks that are listening to this, you could breeze through this description and miss how important that is, how important and what a great example of cover and move this is. Got to put down that cover fire. You got to put down that cover fire, and that's why you got to bring them heavy weapons out there. Bring those AWs out, boys. Lots of them. Back to the book, when my group, consisting of Corporal Joe Toy, PFC Robert Popeye Wynn, and Private Gerald Lorraine from regimental headquarters, reached the hedge that led to the enemy position, we stopped. Here I placed a second machine gun to engage the first gun that was firing point blank at us. I gave the gunner instructions not to fire unless he saw a definite target so he would not give away his position. Then we worked our way up to Compton's hedgerow. Here I spotted a German helmet and squeezed off 2 rounds. Later I found a pool of blood at this position, but no Jerry. And Jerry is a term for German. Next, I sent Compton with 2 men along the hedge to throw hand grenades at the enemy position while the rest of us supported him with covering fire. These guys don't do anything without covering fire. I fired occasionally to fill spots when there was a lull in the covering fire due to putting in new clips. Compton took too long getting his detachment into position, and we spent more ammunition than we should have, but in return, we received no enemy fire. So that covering fire, even though it took too long, but they didn't receive any enemy fire because they were laying down that fire. They were laying down that covering fire. Just as Compton was ready to hurl his grenades, I started across the field with the rest of the assault team so that we jumped into the position together as the grenades exploded. Simultaneously, we hurled additional grenades at the next position. In return, we received substantial small arms fire and grenades from the enemy. As we approached the first gun, Popeye Wynn was hit in the butt and fell down in the trench. Rather than complaining that he was hit, he apologized. "I'm sorry, Lieutenant. I goofed. I'm sorry." My God, it's beautiful when you think of a guy who is so dedicated to his company that he apologizes for getting hit. Now here was a soldier, hit by enemy fire in Normandy on D-Day behind German lines, and he's more upset that he let his buddies down than he was concerned with his own injury. Popeye's actions spoke for all of us. Now, I'm fast forwarding a little bit to they get these guns taken down. With the entire battery now destroyed, we now withdrew because the machine gun fire that we were receiving from the manor house and other positions remained intense. I pulled our own machine guns out first, then the riflemen. I was last to leave, and as I was leaving, I took a final look down the trench, and there was one wounded Jerry trying to put a machine gun into operation. I drilled him through the head. On our way back, I came across Warrant Officer J.G. Andrew Hill, who had been killed working his way up to help us. In all, we had suffered 4 dead, 6 wounded, and we had inflicted 15 dead and 12 captured enemy. German forces in the vicinity of the battery had numbered about 50. About 3 hours passed since I had received the order to dispose of the battery. And then, so they take care of that. They conduct some other smaller operations, and then it goes to the end of D-Day. At long last, D-Day was over. Our success had been to superb leadership at all levels and the training we had experienced prior to the invasion. Add luck to the equation, and Easy Company comprised a formidable team. On reflection, we were highly charged. We knew what to do, and we conducted ourselves as part of a well-oiled machine. Because we were so intimate with each other, I knew the strengths of each of my troopers. This is something that he refers back to a lot, was really understanding his men, what they were like, what drove them, what their strengths and weaknesses were, so he could put them in the correct positions. Evening allowed us a few minutes of quiet reflection. With our outposts in place, I stretched out to catch a few hours of sleep, even though the rattle of German small arms fire continued throughout the night. Before I dozed off, I did not forget to get on my knees and thank God for helping me live through this day and to ask his help on D+1. I would live this war one day at a time, and I promised myself that if I survived, I would find a small farm somewhere in Pennsylvania countryside and spend the remainder of my life in quiet and peace.